Good evening, Justin here from Bringing Learning to Life. Time for Teachable Thursdays. This week I want to focus on testing because we have reached that point in our school year where everyone is focused on testing. It's testing time for most subjects. And so I wanted to talk about how you can relieve testing anxiety for yourselves as a teacher and also for your students. Many students in our schools face testing anxiety. And so there are some things that you can do as a teacher. You control the climate and culture in your classroom. You control that environment. And I just encourage you to take control of it and do things to encourage your students to just kind of relax and not stress over a test. And so I wanted to offer you 7 different strategies or ways in which you could help your students not stress over tests this year. The first thing that I would recommend that you do is write your students a letter or a card or a post-it note, just telling them what they excel at, what they're good at, what they've improved upon this year. Help them understand that they are so much more than this test that they're about to take. Have your students also maybe write letters or cards to each other. It doesn't have to be extensive, just a little note card or just some index cards, and just have them write one to every kid in the class, and that way kids get just these letters telling them how great they are, how they excel at certain things. Maybe kids make you laugh. Maybe somebody is just a leader in your class. Maybe one kid is a really good singer. One kid is a really good dancer. There are so many more things that define our students as great besides a score on a test. And so I just encourage you to let your students know that and write it in a written form to them prior to them taking the test. I think it's important for them to hear it from you and from their peers. The second thing that I recommended is music. Play music in your classrooms on days prior to the test. During the testing day, I used to always play songs, and just kids would just come in to music that morning, and we would just have breakfast and we would dance, and we would just kind of get a lot of energy out. They're going to be sitting still for 3 to 4 hours. You want them to have ways to get their energy out and just relax and just have fun that morning. So play some music. On the blog I recommended even a playlist that's clean and just fun for kids to just dance and just lighten the energy in the room that morning. The third thing, I'm jumping ahead here, is to practice some breathing techniques with your students. Breathing is one of the things that always helps me even throughout my day. Even when I wear my iWatch, it reminds me to breathe. And so I think it's a good technique for us to teach students to do all the time. Just take a breath, right? And let them know that they can do that during the test, and teach them how to breathe in deeply, for 3 to 5 seconds and just out. It doesn't have to be anything loud or that is going to disturb others, but just teaching them to just take that moment to just breathe. That's a good stress management technique, not only for testing, but just for life. Breathing. That's why your iWatch tells you to stop and do it. The next suggestion I had was coloring. Coloring can be very therapeutic for many of our students. It can just take their mind off of the anxiety of testing, let them color something creative. I recommended some free printable coloring pages in the blog that you can just print off and allow your students to color. The next thing that I suggested was to actually let your students paint. And this could be done before the test. So I'm sure many of you have heard of kindness rocks, and maybe you've even seen them in your communities. And so what I would recommend you do is do encouragement rocks for students. Have them paint encouraging messages. Have them paint something that reminds them of something happy. And then bring the rocks with them to school on test day. Let them have the rocks just there on their desk if it makes them happy. That's just one thing that could alleviate some test anxiety from some students. If you have a grade or you teach a grade like, let's say, second grade that doesn't have a test for EOGs, but a third grade class might have a end of grade test, adopt a class and paint rocks for that class and give them to them prior to the test day, and just let them, keep them with them to remind them that they're amazing, they're great, and again, the test does not define who they are as a person. So I think rocks and painting is a good strategy as well. And the sixth thing that I suggested was to laugh. I think laughter heals the soul. Laughter is the best medicine for any type of anxiety. I went into a teacher's classroom one time and he tells 2 to 3 jokes before every class, and he'll say that his jokes are corny. He finds them online. His kids sometimes even laugh at his corniness, but his telling jokes just kind of lightens the mood. Even if kids are laughing at how corny they are, kids are laughing, and there's just something about laughter that takes your mind off stress, that eases your mind. And so I recommend showing your kids a funny video, bringing in some jokes, letting them tell jokes from a joke book or whatever it is that they like to do, just to bring humor to the day. And so again, this could be done prior to the test days, and even like on the test days before you start reading from your prescribed testing manual. When they get through dancing, tell a few jokes. Again, lighten the mood. And the last thing is just love. I think we should tell our kids that we love them all throughout the year. I'm a big fan of that, and letting kids know that we love them, but especially on these test days. Many students really face a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress over these tests, and you have to think, many of our students walk out of the house every morning not even hearing the words "I love you," and so you may be the only person in that child's day to tell them you love them. This is important 180 days out of the year, but it's especially important to a child that comes to school to take a test, and that word, those 3 words, could make or break a child's mood that day, and they're focused on a test. And so I was at my son's school even just the other day, and I heard him come across the intercom and say, "Don't forget, I love you." And to hear that from a teacher, a principal, several teachers that day, I think it means the world to a child. It builds their confidence that somebody loves and cares about them. And we have many students who have parents at home who are telling them that all the time. They have grandparents that are telling them that. They have aunts and uncles that are telling them that. But we have many students who never hear it. And so it's so important to tell kids we love them, especially on test days. So those are 7 tips. Next week, we're going to be talking about some things that you can do after the test days. Those days where you just feel like you're babysitting kids and you have nothing else to do for 2 weeks left of school because the test has already been taken. So we're going to be talking about some innovative ways to not waste your time and really teach kids after the test. So hope you guys have a wonderful evening, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.